Good morning, everyone. Namaste. This is a new greeting that I use here in my office and in my work because we can't hug and we can't shake hands as a way of warmly welcoming one another. But Namaste is an ancient gesture, as you probably already know, that acknowledges the sacred in you and the sacred in me. This morning, we are going to talk about love. Love, not as an experience, but love is the way we exist. Our existence, the purpose of our existence, the fulfillment of our existence. Love, in the context in which we are going to talk about this morning, is a very big story that brings into our ability to love our entire life. Our history, our triumphs, our losses, our sadness, our defeats. Love is the magnitude of our life. In his book, The Art of Loving, Erich Fromm said, that love is an art, and like every other art, it must be known and it must be practiced. So if we know love and we practice love, if we consciously practice love, because love is our purpose, that invites us into living consciously, that we are aware of ourselves. Our love history begins when we are born. Our first lovers are our parents. They teach us the meaning of love by the way they feed us, their attitude towards us, whether they see us as an inconvenience or as a blessing, if they are excited about our existence and want to know about what's going on with us. Our love history begins with them, not in a cognitive way, but in an emotional way. Children learn by feeling, not knowing. Sometimes we have a hard time separating knowing from feeling. Like knowing is cognitive, and that matters, and feeling is weakness, and that doesn't. We unfortunately live as if our mind should outdistance our emotion. And when we do that, we break ourselves in half. And we leave out the most important part of our existence, that is our emotion, our subconscious mind. So the way we love is not so much about the way we think, but the way we feel. Thinking and feeling serve one another. But thinking without feeling is a defeated process. It is defeated because it's faulty. What is love? Love is a very magnanimous experience because it is the power within us that we hardly ever think about. It is the power within us that enables us to blend the adversities and the joys of our life, to tolerate what we find most painful. It brings together what we fear and how we face our fears. Loving is a capacity. It is a disposition that is created within us over our lifetime. That kind of becoming is continuous. We are never too young to learn about loving, and we are never too old to learn about loving. It is not enough that we say to each other, I love you. Because if we are not loving, then those words are empty and meaningless. To be loving is much more believable to the beloved. And it is our own ability to be loving in the way we speak, in the way we handle conflict, our ability to forgive, our willingness to forgive, our willingness to be honest with ourselves. Many years ago, I don't think I ever shared this with the community, that I was a Roman Catholic nun. Now, I was brought up in a very small, very, very small community in upstate New York, in a Lebanese family, with all my aunts and uncles and cousins living all around me. So it was very familiar to me to be with people that I loved and to share good food, good times, run around in the woods, build huts, and make believe cigarettes, pick grapes in my grandfather's vineyard, listen to my adult family debate important issues. Always know that I could run to my grandmother's for a sandwich, or go down into the cellar where she baked pita bread quite often, and would keep a big tub of butter there. So we would run down and we would smear a hot pita bread with butter. No one worried about cholesterol. And we would run out and eat that bread like it was the greatest food we could possibly have. And I learned spirituality in that type of environment. It was not a perfect environment, but it was an open environment. It was not judgmental. It was real. That's where I learned about love and spirituality. Then I entered the convent. I was a Roman Catholic nun for 7.5 years. It was a very rich experience. However, it failed to teach me spirituality, because it became about laws and rules and official teachings, not about love and caring and realness. It restricted me rather than opening me. And so, with great struggle, I made a decision to leave, because the essence of why I went into the convent was not what I discovered when I was there. And so, after a year or two, in which I almost had a nervous breakdown, making a decision to leave, because it was not authentic to me. And I was the beginning of thousands of young women who exited religious life because they too did not believe in the spirituality, the loving spirituality that we were supposed to be living. I wanted to be out in the world. I wanted all of life. I did not want to be put into a position where I was controlled, where as much life that the kind of life, the magnitude of my life was controlled. I went from the freedom of my childhood, the spirituality of my childhood, to this environment which exemplified, or supposed to exemplify, love and spirituality, and did not. So sometimes when we try to be holy, we miss the mark. Because the essence of holiness, of spirituality, and of love are within our lives, in our daily lives, sometimes in the most mundane way, like picking grapes and smearing butter on pita bread. When children are overregulated, their spirit is constricted, and they are afraid to love. So love is the purpose of our life, and it is really the only avenue in which we can find peace. Too many of us feel that love is something that we experience only with the beloved, our children, our spouse. But love is bigger than that. Love is how we exist. Excuse me. How we exist. How we put together broken pieces. How we try to give forgiveness to someone who has broken our heart. Those are not easy experiences. Sometimes we feel defeated by the conflicts in our life. And one of the reasons that we feel defeated is because we feel the conflict is something that shouldn't have happened. The illness, the death, shouldn't have happened. There must have been something wrong with us because it happened. And our separating ourselves from the experience itself means that we have lost the opportunity to learn from that experience. Remember, I said that love is blending. It is blending joy with sorrow, loss with jubilation, love with hurt. Love has that power, so that when we are hurt, we embrace the hurt. When we have lost, we embrace the loss. And how do we do that? We ask ourselves, first of all, what is life trying to teach me at this moment? What can I learn from my illness? Now we know that persons who are ill, we know that if they embrace the illness, they will learn. Maybe they will learn to have a different attitude, a more humble attitude, a more forgiving attitude. Illness comes to teach us, not destroy us. Illness comes. There are many authors that tell us, the book that I think that I mentioned to you before in a previous talk, The Healing Power of Illness, that illness comes to teach us to become more mature, to teach us lessons that we would not ever learn in any other way. The struggle that I had leaving the convent was much more difficult for me than the actual decision. Once I had made the decision, and began implementing it, I learned a lesson that I have taken into my life in every situation, and that is to trust the process of life. When I forced myself to make a decision to leave the convent, I was working at the College of St. Rose in New York State, in Albany, New York, that particular spring break. And I said, okay, so during the spring break, I'm going to make a decision. Now, did I feel like making a decision? I did not. I did not. But I knew I needed to, and I knew I had to. And so, on a cloudy, gloomy day, I walked upstairs to the chapel. There was no one in that chapel. And above the altar was an enormous cross. And I sat in the back, and I looked up at the cross, and I thought to myself, well, if I stay, I know what life will be like. And if I leave, I have no idea what life will be like. Because for almost 7.5 to 8 years, only my hands and my face showed. And now I was going to take all of this off and go out into the world and make my life again at 27 years old. I decided that I'd rather take a chance on the darkness than to remain in a limited light. And so I decided to leave. I wasn't excited about my decision at all. I was forbidden to tell anyone, but of course, I'm not a rule keeper, so I did. I told my best friends that I was leaving. And when I went out into the world, which is a very big story, I had $200 to start my life again. That was the dowry that I paid when I went into the convent. So I went out into the world with a college degree, no certification to teach, and I had a certification that I didn't really even know about, and with $200. I had no clothes, no shoes, nothing. There was a chance I took. I stepped out into the dark. What was important about that decision is exactly that I went out into the world with nothing and hoped that life would show me the way and I would find the way. About 3 days after I left, I had interviewed as a nun, and I got a wonderful job. I was offered many jobs, actually, but the one job I had was a job that I began working almost like 4 days after I left, as a planning committee for a non-graded school. And I began building my life. that what I did materialistically was not nearly as powerful in my life as the belief system that I assimilated in my life. The belief system that the dark isn't nearly as dark when we are brave. That's what life does. That's what love does. Love makes you brave. It makes you brave enough to heal, to recreate, and to believe. I know that the things that I am talking about this morning are very abstract, but they are built on one particular issue that I want you to take away from the talk this morning. And it is this, that your nature is the sacred domain where love will be discovered, practiced, and given to the world. The books you read, the places you go, the retreats, all of that don't make you holy. You are holy. You are holy. Your life is holy. Excuse me. Your life is holy. If only we could believe that. In a world that teaches us that holiness is for certain people, not us. But if we don't practice our holiness by making decisions to step out of the dark, by making decisions to grieve when we are sad, by making decisions to teach ourselves how to say kind words, by teaching ourselves to believe in the power of love because it is greater than the power of vindication or being right or winning. These are futile. These lead us nowhere. Yes, people who are kind may be seen as weak. Don't be deceived. There is nothing more powerful than kindness and love. In the Beatitudes, where a simple demonstration of what love is, what does it say? That when we're hungry, we are going to be fed. When we seek justice and we need justice and we believe in justice, it will be given to us. When we are poor, we will be fed. Simplest beliefs. We have gotten far away from what is most important in life, and that is our human nature. I have been working for the last year and a half with a group of people, friends, on a spiritual community that combines our psychology with our spirituality. It's an organization called Caring People, and soon it will be all over the internet. Because when we leave our nature, as many spiritual communities asked us to do, we have left ourselves behind, and no one can save us. No one can teach us. No one can teach us. When we leave our nature behind, we have left behind the premise of all of our credibility. I am here with you today as someone who can be deeply insecure, who can be very broken, who can be an utter failure, a success, intelligent and insightful. But I am all of those things at every moment of my life. I often think, well, if this didn't happen to me, I don't know, if I didn't enter the convent, most difficult experience of my life, rich and painful. If I didn't do that, who would I be? If I didn't go through that, if I didn't sit in that chapel, that dismal chapel, and look at the big cross over the altar and make a dry decision to begin life again, who would I be? Would I be the woman I am today? I can tell you not. I can tell you not. Recently, I unexpectedly lost my daughter, one of 2 children. Unexpectedly, on a Saturday morning that I thought was like every other Saturday morning, but it wasn't. It was a Saturday morning like no other Saturday morning. Where was I going to put this loss? If I thought of myself, my pain, and I did, and I do yet, I couldn't make sense of it. It only made sense because my daughter, who had such a difficult time finding peace in her life, found peace in death. Some of you may not believe in that spiritual dimension. I respect that. But I also believe there is much about life that we don't know. And we have to make sense of it in the best that we can. I have a very strong belief in the spiritual dimension. Amanda Gorman told us that we must be the light. And we become the light when we can find other ways of explaining reality than the secular ways that the world gives us. I believe that the spiritual dimension of human nature is an important part of our trying to be peaceful, of our making sense, that there are things going on around us and to us and have happened in our history that we cannot in any human way understand. And spirituality is an acknowledgement that perhaps we don't know the whole story. Perhaps there is a part of life that we must trust, like I trusted the darkness. We can't know everything. We can't make perfect sense. But it makes perfect sense to believe in the spiritual dimension of living and loving. Talking to you this morning in this way is a new experience for me. Actually, I've never done this before. And when I was invited, I was kind of nervous and anxious because I've never done this before. And I like to have things right, and I like to do things well. And I'm always excited about teaching and sharing and experiencing. I'm sitting here in my office in Fort Lauderdale talking with you. My humble life. Each of you have a humble life. But your humble life has a magnitude to it that is exciting and wonderful. Each of you is a bestseller. Each of you is a lover. Find your way of loving. Find your way. Find the place. As you go through your day doing whatever it is that you do, and remember, you are a lover. Whether it's how you talk to someone on the phone, or how you make food for your family, or how many words you hold back that may be unkind and judgmental, be a lover. Because lovers change the world. Be a light, not a darkness. I want to read you something in conclusion. This is a quote by a Jesuit father, Pedro Arrupe, and he talks about love. And he writes, "What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide why you get up and out of bed in the morning, and what you do in the evenings, and how you spend your weekends, what you read, what you know, and what breaks your heart. What amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love. Stay in love. And it will decide everything in your life." I wish you love. I wish you become the love that you imagine. And when each of us breathe our last breath, what we leave behind that is most precious is our love. Namaste.